The golden hour light filtered through the tall windows of Bella Vista, casting warm shadows across the marble floors. It was Thursday evening, and the restaurant was already buzzing with activity. The sounds of clinking glasses, soft conversations, and the gentle hum of the air conditioning created the perfect background for another busy night. Maya wiped down the last table in her section and glanced at her watch. 6:30. The dinner rush would start soon, and she needed to make sure everything was perfect. She straightened her black apron and tucked a loose strand of dark hair behind her ear. After 3 years of working at Bella Vista, she had learned that attention to detail made all the difference between a good tip and a great one. The restaurant was impressive even by downtown standards. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, and expensive artwork decorated the walls. The tables were set with fine china and real silver cutlery. Everything about the place screamed luxury and sophistication. It was the kind of restaurant where business deals were made over expensive wine and where people came to celebrate their biggest moments. Maya had seen it all during her time here. Marriage proposals that made her tear up, business meetings that changed lives, and celebrations that went on until the early morning hours. She loved being part of these special moments, even if she was just the person bringing the food. But what most people didn't know about Maya was her secret passion. Every morning before work, and every night after her shift ended, she would sit at the old piano in her tiny apartment and lose herself in music. Her fingers would dance across the keys, playing everything from classical pieces to modern songs she heard on the radio. Music was her escape, her joy, and her dream. She had been playing piano since she was 7 years old. Her grandmother had saved up for months to buy her a second-hand keyboard for her birthday. Maya still remembered the excitement she felt when she pressed those keys for the first time. The sound that came out was magical, and from that moment, she was hooked. Through high school, Maya had been the star of every school concert. Her music teacher always said she had a gift, something special that couldn't be taught. She had even received a scholarship to study music at the local college. But life had other plans. When her father got sick, Maya had to drop out to help support her family. The medical bills kept piling up, and someone had to work. That's how she ended up at Bella Vista. The pay was good enough to help at home, and the flexible schedule allowed her to take care of her father during the day. She told herself it was temporary, just until things got better. But 3 years had passed, and she was still there, still dreaming of the day she could get back to her music. The other servers at the restaurant were nice enough, but they didn't really understand her. They saw her as quiet and serious, always focused on work. They didn't know about the music sheets hidden in her locker, or the way her fingers moved unconsciously when she heard a beautiful melody playing in the background. In the corner of Bella Vista's main dining room sat a beautiful, black grand piano. It was a Steinway, worth more than Maya made in 2 years. The restaurant's owner had bought it to add class to the place, but it was rarely used. Occasionally, they would hire a pianist for special events, but most nights it just sat there, silent and elegant, like a sleeping giant. Maya often found herself staring at that piano during quiet moments. She would imagine sitting at the bench, her fingers finding the familiar keys, music filling the room. She wondered what it would feel like to play such a beautiful instrument. Her apartment piano was old and some keys stuck, but she loved it anyway. This Steinway, though, would be like driving a luxury car after years of walking. Sometimes, late at night when she was cleaning up, Maya would walk over to the piano and gently touch the keys. She never pressed them hard enough to make sound, afraid someone might hear. But even just touching them made her feel connected to the music inside her heart. The restaurant manager, Mr. Chen, was a kind man who treated his employees fairly. He had noticed Maya's dedication and promoted her to head server in her section. She was reliable, professional, and customers always left happy. But like everyone else, he had no idea about her musical background. To him, Maya was just a hard-working, young woman trying to make ends meet. As Maya prepared for the evening shift, she noticed the reservation book was fuller than usual. Thursday nights were typically busy, but tonight looked especially packed. There was a large party celebrating a business deal, several anniversary dinners, and a few regular customers who came in every week. She checked her reflection in the hallway mirror and practiced her smile. Customer service was an art, and Maya had perfected it over the years. She knew how to be friendly without being too personal, professional without being cold. She could read people quickly and adjust her approach based on what they needed. The first customers of the evening were an elderly couple celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. Maya seated them at their favorite table by the window and brought them their usual bottle of wine. They always asked about her studies, thinking she was still in college. Maya never corrected them. It was easier than explaining the complicated truth. And next came a group of young professionals, probably celebrating a promotion or a new job. They were loud and excited, full of energy and dreams. Maya remembered being that age, full of hope about the future. She served them with extra enthusiasm, remembering what it felt like to believe anything was possible. As the evening progressed, the restaurant filled up completely. Maya moved efficiently between tables, taking orders, serving food, and making sure everyone had what they needed. Her feet were starting to hurt in her comfortable work shoes, but she kept her smile bright and her energy up. The piano in the corner caught her eye again as she passed by with a tray of desserts. A couple at table 12 was looking at it, probably wondering if anyone ever played it. The woman seemed disappointed when her date told her it was just for decoration. Maya wished she could tell them that someone who truly appreciated it was right there, serving their dinner. During a brief lull in the action, Maya stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. The city was alive with its usual evening energy. Cars moved slowly through traffic. People walked by on their way to dinner or entertainment, and the sounds of urban life created their own kind of music. She thought about her father, probably watching television at home, and her mother, working the night shift at the hospital. Both of them had sacrificed so much to give her opportunities they never had. Her father always told her that education was the one thing no one could take away from her. Her mother believed that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle. Maya knew they were proud of her, even though this wasn't the life any of them had planned. They had all imagined her on stage somewhere, playing piano for audiences who appreciated classical music. Instead, she was here, serving other people's celebrations and dreams. But Maya wasn't bitter. She had learned that life rarely goes according to plan, and sometimes the detours teach you things you never would have learned otherwise. Working at Bella Vista had shown her different kinds of people and different ways of living. She had developed patience, resilience, and a deep appreciation for the simple moments of human connection. As she headed back inside to finish her shift, Maya had no idea that this ordinary Thursday evening was about to become extraordinary. She couldn't know that in just a few hours, her hidden talent would be revealed in a way that would change everything. For now, she was just a dedicated server, ready to make sure her customers had a perfect dining experience. The evening was flowing smoothly until Maya noticed the commotion at the front entrance. Mr. Chen, the restaurant manager, was personally greeting someone, which usually meant a very important guest had arrived. Maya glanced over while refilling water glasses at table 6 and saw a tall man in an expensive suit walking in with 3 other people following behind him. Even from across the room, Maya could tell this man was different from their usual customers. Everything about him screamed money and power. His suit looked like it cost more than Maya made in 3 months. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, and he wore a watch that caught the light every time he moved his wrist. But it wasn't just his expensive clothes that set him apart. It was the way he carried himself, like he owned every room he entered. The man's name was Vincent Crawford, though Maya didn't know this yet. Vincent was a successful real estate developer who had built half the downtown skyline. He was used to getting his way, and he expected everyone around him to recognize his importance immediately. Tonight he was celebrating the biggest deal of his career, a project that would make him even richer than he already was. Mr. Chen led Vincent and his group to the best table in the restaurant, right in the center where everyone could see them. Maya watched as they settled in, Vincent taking the seat that faced the entire dining room. He seemed to enjoy being the center of attention, looking around as if expecting other diners to recognize him. Maya was assigned to their table, which both excited and worried her. Important customers usually tipped well, but they also expected perfect service. One small mistake could ruin everything. She took a deep breath, straightened her apron, and walked over with menus and her brightest smile. From the moment Maya approached their table, she could sense Vincent's attitude. He didn't look at her face when she spoke. Instead, he kept talking to his companions as if she wasn't even there. When she tried to explain the evening's specials, he held up his hand to silence her without even glancing in her direction. "We'll have the most expensive bottle of wine you have," Vincent said loudly, making sure nearby tables could hear him. "And make sure it's properly chilled. I doubt you understand much about wine, but just do what I tell you." Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her professional smile in place. "Of course, sir. I'll have our sommelier select something special for you." Vincent's companions seemed uncomfortable with his rudeness, exchanging glances when they thought he wasn't looking. One of them, a woman in a blue dress, even smiled apologetically at Maya. But Vincent was too busy enjoying himself to notice anyone else's discomfort. When Maya returned with the wine, Vincent made a big show of tasting it. He swirled it in his glass, sniffed it dramatically, and took a small sip while everyone watched. Maya knew he was performing for the other diners, trying to show off his sophistication. After what felt like forever, he nodded his approval, but not before making another comment. "I suppose this will do, though I doubt you understand the difference between a good wine and a great one," he said, looking directly at Maya for the first time. His eyes were cold and dismissive. "People in your position usually don't have experience with quality." Maya's hands trembled slightly as she poured the wine for the table. She had actually studied wine appreciation as part of her hospitality training, and she knew this particular bottle quite well. But she said nothing, focusing on doing her job professionally despite the humiliation. The evening got worse from there. Vincent complained about everything. The bread wasn't warm enough. The lighting was too dim. The music was too loud. Each complaint was delivered in a voice loud enough for other tables to hear, and each one was accompanied by a comment about Maya's supposed inability to understand quality or proper service. Other diners in the restaurant were starting to notice the situation. Maya could feel their eyes on her as she tried to handle Vincent's constant demands with grace and patience. Some looked sympathetic, while others seemed embarrassed to witness such behavior. The atmosphere in the restaurant was becoming tense. Maya's co-workers also noticed what was happening. Lisa, another server, came over during a quiet moment and whispered, "Are you okay? That guy is being awful to you." Maya nodded, trying to stay strong. "I'm fine. He's just having a bad day, I guess." But deep down, Maya was hurt and angry. She had dealt with difficult customers before, but Vincent's behavior was different. It wasn't just about the service. There was something personal in the way he spoke to her, something that made her feel small and worthless. The situation reached its peak when Maya was serving the main course. She was carefully placing Vincent's steak in front of him when he suddenly moved his arm to gesture to someone at another table. Maya tried to adjust, but it was too late. The edge of the plate brushed against his expensive suit jacket, leaving a small smudge of sauce on the sleeve. Vincent looked down at the stain and his face turned red with rage. The entire restaurant seemed to go quiet as he slowly stood up from his chair. Maya's heart sank as she realized what had happened. "Look what you've done," Vincent shouted, his voice echoing through the restaurant. "This jacket costs more than you make in 6 months. Do you have any idea how to do your job properly?" Maya immediately apologized and reached for her cleaning cloth, but Vincent stepped back as if she might contaminate him further. "Don't touch me," he snapped. "You've already done enough damage. This is exactly what I would expect from someone like you." The words, "someone like you," hung in the air like a slap. Maya knew what he meant, and so did everyone else in the restaurant. This wasn't just about a small stain on expensive clothing. This was about Vincent showing everyone that he thought he was better than her, that she was beneath him. Maya stood there, her cleaning cloth still in her hand, feeling the eyes of every person in the restaurant on her. Her face was burning with shame, but she refused to cry. She had too much pride for that. Vincent continued his tirade, getting louder and more aggressive with each word. "People like you need to learn your place. You should be grateful to even work in a place like this. I've eaten in restaurants all over the world, and I've never seen such incompetent service." His companions were looking down at their plates, clearly uncomfortable with the scene their host was creating. Other diners had stopped eating and were watching the drama unfold. Some looked shocked, others seemed angry at Vincent's behavior. But no one said anything. Mr. Chen appeared at Maya's side, trying to calm the situation. "Mr. Crawford, please let us take care of this. We'll have your jacket cleaned immediately, and of course your entire meal is complimentary." But Vincent wasn't finished. He was enjoying the attention, the power he felt in humiliating someone, in front of a room full of people. He looked around the restaurant, making sure everyone was watching, before delivering his final insult. Maya stood perfectly still, absorbing every cruel word. Inside, her heart was breaking. But outside, she maintained her dignity. She had learned long ago that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay quiet and let other people show their true character. Little did Vincent know that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. In trying to embarrass Maya, he was about to discover that you should never judge someone by their job title or their circumstances. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places. Vincent wasn't done with his public humiliation of Maya. The small stain on his jacket had given him the perfect excuse to show everyone in the restaurant just how important he thought he was. He looked around the room, making sure all eyes were on him before continuing his attack. "This is unbelievable," Vincent declared, his voice carrying across the silent restaurant. "I come to what's supposed to be a fine dining establishment, and this is the kind of service I get? From someone who clearly doesn't belong in a place like this?" Maya stood frozen, still holding her cleaning cloth. Every word felt like a physical blow, but she kept her head up and her shoulders straight. Her grandmother had always taught her that dignity was something no one could take away from you, no matter what they said or did. The other diners were watching the scene unfold with a mixture of shock and disgust. An elderly couple at table 4 looked horrified by Vincent's behavior. A young family with 2 children quickly asked for their check, clearly wanting to leave before things got worse. But Vincent seemed to feed off the attention, growing more confident with each passing moment. "You know what your problem is?" Vincent continued, pointing his finger at Maya. "You people think you can just walk into any job and expect to be treated with respect. But respect is earned, not given. And frankly, I don't see anything here worth respecting." Maya's co-worker Lisa had moved closer, ready to step in if things got physical. Mr. Chen was trying to signal other staff members to help defuse the situation. But Vincent was in his element now, performing for his captive audience. Then Vincent's eyes landed on the beautiful black piano in the corner of the restaurant. A cruel smile spread across his face as an idea formed in his mind. This was his chance to really show everyone the difference between people like him and people like Maya. "You see that piano over there?" Vincent asked loudly, gesturing toward the instrument. "That's a Steinway grand piano. It's worth more money than you'll see in your entire lifetime. I bet you don't even know what it is, do you?" Maya followed his gaze to the piano she had admired so many times during her shifts. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized where this was heading. Vincent had no idea what he was about to unleash. "That piano represents culture, education, refinement," Vincent continued, warming to his theme. "Things that people like you will never understand. I bet you've never even heard classical music, let alone know how to appreciate it." The restaurant remained deadly quiet. Even Vincent's own companions looked uncomfortable with how far he was taking this public humiliation. The woman in the blue dress was shaking her head slightly, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. Vincent walked over to the piano, running his hand along its polished surface. This instrument has probably been played by real musicians, people who spent years studying their craft, people who understand what true artistry means. It's not something you just walk up to and pretend to know about. Maya watched him touching the piano that had called to her so many times. She could feel something building inside her chest, a mixture of anger, hurt, and something else she couldn't quite name. It was as if Vincent was insulting not just her, but everything she held dear. "I studied piano for 12 years, Vincent announced proudly. I can appreciate the finer things in life because I was raised to understand quality. I know the difference between real talent and, well, whatever it is that people like you do with your time. This was a lie, of course. Vincent had taken maybe 6 months of piano lessons as a child before quitting because it was too much work. But no one in the restaurant knew that, and he was counting on his confidence to sell the story. Maya felt her hands trembling. Not from fear or embarrassment anymore, but from something much deeper. Vincent had just insulted the one thing in her life that meant everything to her. He had dismissed her passion, her talent, her years of dedication without knowing anything about her at all. You probably think that piano is just furniture, Vincent continued, his voice dripping with condescension. Just another pretty decoration to make this place look fancy. People like you don't understand that some things require education, breeding, and natural talent to truly appreciate. The cruel irony of his words wasn't lost on Maya. If only he knew that she had been staring at that piano every day for 3 years, imagining what it would feel like to play it. If only he knew about the countless hours she had spent practicing, the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she still carried in her heart. Vincent turned back to face Maya and the rest of the restaurant. This is exactly what's wrong with the world today. People expect to be treated as equals when they clearly aren't. Some of us are born to lead, to appreciate beauty, to understand culture. Others are meant to serve, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as everyone stays in their proper place. A few people in the restaurant shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Vincent's words were hitting too close to some very ugly truths that many people preferred not to think about. But he wasn't finished yet. I guarantee you, Vincent said, pointing at Maya again, that this girl has never played a musical instrument in her life, probably doesn't even know the names of any classical composers, probably thinks Mozart is a type of cheese. A few of his companions chuckled nervously at this joke, though they looked ashamed of themselves immediately afterward. Vincent, encouraged by their reaction, decided to push even further. You know what? I'm feeling generous tonight, Vincent announced. I'm going to give you a chance to prove me wrong. Go ahead, walk over to that piano and show us what you can do. Play us a song. Any song. Let's see if you can even make a sound come out of it. The challenge hung in the air like a dare. Maya looked at Vincent, then at the piano, then back at Vincent. Her heart was pounding so hard, she was sure everyone could hear it. This was the moment she had been both dreading and hoping for 3 long years. What's the matter? Vincent taunted. Afraid to embarrass yourself? Smart choice. At least you know your limitations. That's more than I can say, for most people these days. Maya stood perfectly still for what felt like an eternity. Everyone in the restaurant was watching her, waiting to see what she would do. Would she walk away in shame? Would she try to play and fail miserably? Vincent was clearly expecting her to either refuse or make a fool of herself trying. But Maya was thinking about something else entirely. She was thinking about her grandmother, who had saved for months to buy her that first keyboard. She was thinking about her father, who used to sit and listen to her practice even when he was exhausted from work. She was thinking about all the dreams she had put on hold, all the music that lived inside her heart. Most of all, she was thinking about that beautiful piano that had been waiting silently in the corner all this time, just like she had been waiting for her moment to shine. Maya looked directly at Vincent, her voice steady and clear. You're right about one thing, sir. I do know that piano. She set down her cleaning cloth and began walking toward the instrument that would change her life forever. Maya walked slowly toward the piano, her heart beating so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. The restaurant had fallen completely silent. Even the kitchen staff had stopped what they were doing to watch through the service window. Every pair of eyes in the room was focused on her as she crossed the dining room floor. Vincent stood beside the piano with his arms crossed, a smug smile on his face. He was already imagining how this would play out. Maya would sit down, maybe press a few keys randomly, and then walk away in embarrassment. It would be the perfect ending to his demonstration of superiority. He might even feel generous enough to forgive her for the stain on his jacket after she admitted defeat. As Maya approached the piano bench, she could feel her hands shaking slightly. not from nervousness about playing, but from the overwhelming emotion of finally being able to touch this beautiful instrument after 3 years of just looking at it. She had dreamed about this moment so many times, though never under these circumstances. She gently lifted the piano bench and sat down, adjusting her position, just like her first piano teacher had shown her 20 years ago. The familiar feeling of sitting at a piano bench sent a wave of calm through her body. This was where she belonged. This was home. Vincent was still talking, unable to resist getting in a few more insults. "Take your time," he said sarcastically. "I'm sure you need a moment to figure out which end makes the sound." But Maya wasn't listening to him anymore. She was looking at the keys, the beautiful black and white keys that she had been dreaming about for so long. She reached out and gently touched middle C, barely pressing it enough to make a sound. The note rang out clear and pure in the silent restaurant. The sound sent shivers down her spine. The piano was perfectly tuned, its voice rich and warm. This was so different from her old apartment piano with its stuck keys and tinny sound. This instrument was alive, waiting for someone who understood its language. Maya closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, something had changed. The scared, embarrassed waitress was gone. In her place sat a musician, a real artist who had been hiding in plain sight for 3 long years. Without any fanfare or announcement, Maya began to play. Her fingers found the opening notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, one of the most beautiful and challenging pieces in the classical repertoire. The first few notes floated through the restaurant like magic, so soft and delicate that people had to strain to hear them. Vincent's smile began to fade as he realized that Maya actually knew what she was doing. These weren't random notes or simple melodies. This was real music, played with skill and feeling that he had never heard before, not even in the concert halls he claimed to frequent. As Maya continued playing, her confidence grew with each measure. Her fingers moved across the keys with the grace and precision that only comes from years of dedicated practice. The music began to swell, filling every corner of the restaurant with its breathtaking beauty. The elderly couple at table 4 were the first to really understand what they were witnessing. The man had tears in his eyes as he reached for his wife's hand. They had been married for 40 years and had attended dozens of classical concerts together, but they had never heard anything quite like this. Maya wasn't just playing the notes. She was telling a story with the music, sharing her heart with everyone in the room. A young mother at table 7 was trying to explain to her 5-year-old daughter what was happening. "That's called classical music, sweetheart," she whispered. "The lady is playing it just for us." The little girl watched in wonder, completely mesmerized by the sounds coming from the piano. Vincent stood frozen beside the piano, his mouth slightly open in shock. This wasn't supposed to happen. Maya was supposed to embarrass herself, not whatever this was. He could feel the eyes of the other diners turning toward him, and for the first time in years, Vincent Crawford didn't know what to say. Maya transitioned seamlessly from the Chopin into something completely different. She began playing a jazz version of Autumn Leaves, her fingers dancing over the keys with a completely different style but the same incredible skill. This showed everyone that her talent wasn't limited to just classical music. She could play anything. The restaurant manager, Mr. Chen, stood in the doorway leading to the kitchen, his eyes wide with amazement. In all his years of running Bella Vista, he had never seen anything like this. The piano had been silent for months, used only as decoration. Now it was singing with the voice of an angel, played by someone he saw every day but had never really known. Maya's co-workers were equally stunned. Lisa, who had worked alongside Maya for 2 years, felt like she was meeting her friend for the first time. How had Maya kept this incredible talent hidden? How had none of them ever suspected that their quiet, hard-working colleague was actually a gifted musician? As Maya played, her confidence continued to grow. She began to add her own variations to the familiar melody, improvising in a way that showed not just technical skill but true musical understanding. Her years of practice in her tiny apartment, playing on that old piano with the stuck keys, had prepared her for this moment better than any fancy music school could have. The jazz piece flowed into something else, a gentle rendition of Amazing Grace that brought tears to many eyes in the restaurant. Maya's interpretation was so filled with emotion and meaning that it felt like a prayer. Some of the diners found themselves thinking about their own struggles, their own moments of grace and redemption. Vincent's companions were staring at him now, waiting to see how he would react. The woman in the blue dress looked particularly disgusted with the man who had brought them to dinner. She had never seen anyone treated as cruelly as Vincent had treated Maya, and now she was witnessing the most beautiful music she had ever heard coming from the person he had tried to humiliate. A businessman at table 10 started recording the performance on his phone, realizing that he was witnessing something special that needed to be shared. Other diners followed his example, pulling out their phones to capture this magical moment. Maya seemed completely unaware of the cameras and the staring faces. She was lost in the music, finally able to share the gift she had been keeping hidden for so long. Her fingers moved with the confidence of someone who had been playing piano since childhood, someone who understood music at the deepest level. The final notes of Amazing Grace faded into silence, but Maya wasn't finished yet. She looked up, for the first time since she had started playing, her eyes meeting Vincent's across the top of the piano. Without saying a word, she began her final piece, the most challenging and beautiful song in her repertoire. The opening notes of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 filled the restaurant, and everyone knew they were about to witness something truly extraordinary. Maya's fingers touched the keys for the opening of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, and the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. This piece was known as one of the most difficult and emotional works ever written for piano. Most professional pianists spent years mastering it, and here was Maya, a waitress they had all overlooked, about to attempt it from memory. The first notes were soft and haunting, like a whispered secret shared between Maya and the piano. Her technique was flawless, but more than that, she played with such deep emotion that every person in the room could feel the music reaching into their hearts. This wasn't just a performance. It was pure artistry. Vincent stood completely still, beside the piano, his face pale with shock. He had spent the entire evening trying to prove that Maya was beneath him, that she didn't belong in the same world as successful people like himself. Now he was watching her display a level of talent and sophistication that he could never hope to achieve. His expensive clothes and fancy watch suddenly felt meaningless. As Maya continued playing, the music grew more complex and powerful. Her fingers flew across the keys with incredible speed and precision, executing passages that would challenge even concert pianists. But she made it look effortless, as if the music was flowing directly from her soul through her hands onto the keys. The elderly couple at table 4 were openly weeping now. They had attended symphony concerts all their lives, but they had never experienced anything as moving as this. The husband squeezed his wife's hand and whispered, "In 40 years of marriage, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." Mr. Chen, the restaurant manager, realized he was witnessing something historic. He quietly signaled to his staff to stop all service and just listen. The kitchen grew silent. The servers stopped clearing tables. Even the dishwashers came out to hear the music that was transforming their workplace into a concert hall. Maya's coworker, Lisa, stood with tears streaming down her face. She thought about all the times she had complained about difficult customers or boring shifts while working alongside someone with this incredible gift. Maya had never once mentioned her musical background, had never acted like she was better than anyone else, despite possessing talent that most people could only dream of. The young family with children had forgotten all about leaving early. Their 5-year-old daughter sat mesmerized, her little hands moving as if she was trying to copy Maya's finger movements. "Mommy," she whispered, "is she magic?" Her mother could only nod, because there was no other way to explain what they were witnessing. Vincent's business companions were staring at him with undisguised disgust. They had all been embarrassed by his behavior throughout the evening, but now they were seeing the full extent of his cruelty. He had tried to humiliate someone who possessed more real class and talent than he would ever have. The woman in the blue dress shook her head in shame, already planning to distance herself from Vincent after tonight. As Maya reached the climax of the piece, Her playing became even more intense and passionate. This was the moment she had been building toward, the emotional peak of one of the greatest compositions ever written. Her entire body moved with the music, and everyone could see that she wasn't just playing notes on a page. She was telling the story of her own life, the struggles, the sacrifices, the dreams deferred but never abandoned. The businessman who had started recording was no longer thinking about social media likes or viral videos. He was simply trying to capture something beautiful and share it with the world. Other diners had their phones out too, but they seemed to forget about them as they became lost in the music. Maya's performance was reaching its conclusion, the final powerful chords that would bring this masterpiece to its end. But as she played these last measures, something remarkable happened in the restaurant. People began to stand up, not to leave, but to show their respect for what they had just witnessed. It started with the elderly couple, who rose slowly from their seats, their eyes never leaving Maya's hands on the keys. Then the young mother stood, lifting her daughter, so she could see better. One by one, every person in the restaurant got to their feet, drawn by the power of Maya's performance and the realization that they were in the presence of something extraordinary. Even Vincent's companion stood up, though Vincent himself remained frozen in place, still trying to process what was happening. His entire worldview was crumbling around him. Everything he thought he knew about success, class, and worth was being challenged by a woman he had dismissed as insignificant. Maya played the final thundering chord of the concerto, and as the last note faded into silence, the restaurant erupted. The applause was deafening, a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. People were shouting "Bravo" and wiping tears from their eyes. The little girl was clapping so hard her tiny hands were turning red. Maya sat at the piano bench for a moment, overwhelmed by the response. She had been performing in her apartment for so long that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to share her music with others. The applause washed over her like a warm wave, healing years of self-doubt and unfulfilled dreams. When she finally stood up and turned to face the room, the applause grew even louder. Mr. Chen was clapping so hard he looked like his hands might break. The kitchen staff had emerged completely from the kitchen to join the ovation. Even other restaurants in the area had sent staff members over to see what was causing all the commotion. Maya's eyes found Vincent, who was still standing beside the piano in shock. For a moment their eyes met, and Vincent saw something in her gaze that made him feel smaller than he ever had in his life. It wasn't anger or triumph. It was pity. Maya felt sorry for him, for his inability to see the value in other people, for his need to tear others down to feel important. Vincent's face turned red with shame. Without saying a word, he reached into his wallet and pulled out several $100 bills, placing them on the table. It wasn't just a tip. It was an apology, an admission that he had been completely wrong about everything. He gathered his things and walked toward the exit, his companions following behind him with disappointed looks on their faces. As Vincent reached the door, he turned back one last time to look at Maya, who was still accepting congratulations from the other diners. He realized that he had just learned the most expensive lesson of his life, that real worth has nothing to do with money or status, and everything to do with character, talent, and the way you treat other people. Mr. Chen approached Maya with tears in his eyes. "Maya, I had no idea. Why didn't you ever tell us about your musical background?" Maya smiled, the same gentle smile she had always worn while serving tables. "You never asked. Besides, I'm here to work, not to perform." But as she looked around at the faces of everyone in the restaurant, she realized that maybe it was time to stop hiding her light under a bushel. The story of Maya's incredible performance spread beyond the restaurant that night. Videos of her playing went viral on social media, and by the next morning she had received calls from music venues, recording studios, and conservatories from around the world. But more importantly, she had reminded everyone who witnessed her performance that you should never judge someone by their job, their appearance, or their circumstances. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for their moment to shine.